Hello, health class. Today we are starting our drug unit. So I want to begin with some general information. And the first thing is you will need a sheet of lined paper, actually probably several for this series of notes and something to write with. And maybe 4 different colors because we're going to talk about the 4 different ways that drugs enter your brain. So that is the topic of this page. This is the 4 main ways drugs enter the brain. Now, anything that you would consider a drug goes to the brain, and that's where it causes the changes in the person's behavior. Caffeine, as you know, goes into the brain and changes neurotransmitter levels. Advil, everything crosses the blood-brain barrier, but these are going to be something called psychoactive drugs, which are going to change the way that you think. So the 4 main ways are going to be written in table form. So maybe go down about 3 lines and draw the best horizontal line you can, and then divide it into 4 sections. All right. See, my first route of entry is the one that gets to your brain the fastest. The scientific name for that would be inhaled, but in parentheses, I'll just put what we call it. That's something that is smoked. The next way that drugs enter someone's brain is being injected. And that means you give yourself a shot. So this is going to involve needles. This is going to give someone a pure form of the drug. When you smoke something, some of the drug escapes with the exhaling. When something's injected into someone's bloodstream, all of the drug goes straight to their brain. All right, then you have snorting or sniffing. Sometimes they call it snuffing. And then lastly, you have oral ingestion, which is just basically taking a pill. Pills. So for each of these 4, we're going to briefly show the pathway that the drug takes to the brain to cause that person that high. So when something is smoked, it goes into your lungs, and it goes to your heart, and from your heart it enters into your bloodstream, and then it reaches its final destination, which is your brain, where it causes the behavioral side effects. Common drugs taken in this way would be marijuana and nicotine in cigarettes. All right. The injectable drugs, keep in mind the needles right here. Whenever you see needles, if it's not in a hospital or controlled setting, you have a high risk for HIV transmission, not just the high that the person would get, but also the STD or something else such as HIV that someone could contract. So this one is a very short route. You inject it straight into the blood, and from the blood it takes the highway to the brain. So blood straight to the brain. Snorting or sniffing something, this would be goes through your nose, then into the blood, and then once something's in your blood, it can take the highway to your brain. Something that's often snorted or sniffed would be cocaine. Going back to the injectable drugs, this would be something like heroin. Keep in mind, most drugs can be taken in these different ways. They can be melted down and injected, or put into a powder form to be snuffed, or into a plastic capsule to be digested. But most drugs will have their main mode of entry, but many are possible for many drugs. This one is the one that takes the longest to get to your brain because it has to go through your digestive system. So this would be when someone would take something through the mouth, it would go through the stomach. Once in the stomach, it's got some digestion that occurs. It goes to your small intestine, where basically everything except water and vitamins and minerals gets absorbed. And then from the small intestine, it goes to your blood, and then from your blood, it will enter your brain. So these are the 4 ways that drugs are taken into your body and go to your brain. And they're going to lead to different ways, or how long the drug lasts in your body, how strong is the drug in your body, and how fast does it get to your brain, depends on the mode of entry. Now, based on the mode of entry that the drug takes into the body, you're going to have different behavioral effects. But the key point for the second half of this paper is the more drug in your brain, the greater the behavioral side effects will be. So basically it's saying, you could just think of this more easily with alcohol. The more someone drinks, the more drunk they act. So the more meth in someone's body, the more off-kilter or tweaking they will be. So we are going to go through how these modes of entry that we discussed up here, how fast they get into your body, how strong will it be when it is in the person's body, and how long will it last. So these are the three main questions. How long to get to brain? How long of a high? And then how strong of the high. All right, so we're going to make this in line graph form, but it will be actually more curved line, so don't get out a ruler. Let's go ahead and make a graph like this. Let's label your x-axis here. This is going to be time after a drug is taken. And then your y-axis, what's going to respond to the amount of time that's lapsed since you've taken the drug, is going to be the amount of drug in your body. I'm going to put in brain because these are called psychoactive. They're going to your brain and they're going to change your behavior by changing your brain. So let's go ahead and make a key. I'm going to try to use the same colors as I did up here. So my green is going to be my inhaled or my smoked drugs. I'm just going to put smoked. All right, let's see. My orange is going to be my injected drugs. My blue is going to be my snorted drugs. Keep in mind, people that snort drugs will often have nosebleeds. And then my pink, magenta, is going to be my pills. All right, so I'm going to start with my green, with my smoked. So I'm going to make a spike of a bell, and then it's going to taper the longer it's been since the person's used a drug. So this one's going to spike quickly, and then taper off quickly. This would be, I'm going to label it just to be thorough, when a drug is smoked. The next one will get to the brain almost just as quick, but just a little bit slower, but it's going to lead to a stronger amount of drug in the brain because, like I told you, it's not smoked, so the drug is going directly into the blood without any escape in the smoke. So this one's going to get to the brain slower, but you're going to have a stronger spike right here. So injectable drugs are going to lead to the strongest high for the user. This can be incredibly dangerous and lead to overdose. So this is going to be my shots. Not shots of alcohol, but my injectable drugs. Okay, so you see a higher amount in the person's brain, but a little bit slower to get to the brain than smoking the drug. All right, snorting the drug is going to be your third fastest. So we're going to have it peak in the person's brain a little bit longer after. So this will be when a drug is snorted. And the one that takes the longest to get to your body but leads to the longest high for the user is going to be in pill form. Now keep in mind, when someone takes a drug in its form that it should be taken, like let's say you are taking morphine for your pain, it's not technically drug abuse because your doctor told you to take it. They would give you a pill form to take home from the hospital. In the hospital, they would inject you with it because you'd get relief faster. But to bring it home, you would take it in pill form, so you'd have a long-term relief. And obviously, it's easier to take drugs in pill form at home if it's from the doctor. So this one, I want it to be represented. It's going to take the longest to get to your brain, but it's going to lead to the longest amount of relief for the person who's using it under the doctor's supervision. That would be like painkillers. So this would be pills. Okay. So pills, this one is the longest. I'm going to put it in quote unquote high, but keep in mind it could be pain relief. Okay, this one is going to be needles, and this is going to be your strongest. Okay, that says strongest. And then smoked or inhaled, this one is going to be the drug that gets to your brain the fastest. All right, so keep this in mind when we are going to be reviewing the different types of drugs. What's going to matter is how is that drug getting into the person's body? Did they take a pill? Did they snort it? Did they inject it? Or did they smoke it? That's going to affect their behavioral outcomes.